Welcome, you guys. My name is Nurse Dynasty, and today we are doing the traffic light on murmurs. This topic is one that, for some reason, we fear. We fear, but guess what? No matter how we feel about murmurs, they are on the test. So I think instead of fearing it, we tackle it heads on. And a matter of fact, I found a systemic approach to these questions that will make you get it right each and every time. So, fear no more. I got you. We'll be talking about murmurs, systolic murmurs, mitral regurg, physiological murmurs, aortic stenosis, mitral valve prolapse, diastolic murmurs, aortic regurg, mitral stenosis, our famous traffic red light, yellow, green light. And then with your conclusion, we will be going over a question and see if we can get it right. So let's put our knowledge to the test. And I bet we will. And I bet we will. So this slide was actually at the bottom, but this is so what we're talking about. There's so many people doing reviews. I'm not that chick, but I got something to help you see it, know it, and get it right. Okay? So, how you do it, work backwards. You work backwards. You cannot know where you're going if you don't know what they're asking for. The boards is famous for giving you these long paragraphs of fluff and nothing. Having one answer match a question that has nothing to do with nothing, right? And then they're famous for having two answers that could be the right one. So I found a way to get through both of those problems. So we're going to work backwards to identify the meat and potatoes, what we're looking for. Assessment findings of these murmurs. There's clues in everything. How your patient presents, because we're clinic, is always going to test you on primary care. And then you guys, you can't get over it, under it. It's on the test. Either if you're a flashcard girly, do that. Me, I ain't got time for that. Take a PowerPoint, turn it to a PDF, and let's move on. That's how you study. Hence why I'm a trauma ED nurse. Okay. So here we go. There is 2 or 3 questions on murmurs, period. And these 2 or 3 questions, we will get it right if we do this systemic approach each and every time. Location, apartment M. There's other ones out there. I find this easy. Some people like 8 to man. Apartment M. Systolic. Mr. Peyton Manning as MVP. Diastolic. He got strong arms. And because he is a football player, when he travels, he's located in apartment M. All that goes together. All that works for me. I don't need anything else. There you go. Aortic. Aortic is the only one on the right side. The only one. So if you see a right placement, it's aortic. It has to have aortic in its name, right? Pulmonic, tricuspid, mitrals, left side. For the sake of this board, aortic, mitrals are the ones that you have to concentrate on. Not saying you don't know the rest. I'm saying concentrate on those 2. Because I bet my money 2 or 3 questions will come from those right there. Okay? For the sake of this board, mitral will only be identified as apical or apex. That's it. Why? Because if it says fifth, tricuspid is on that border. So it could be either or. So to distinguish apical, apex. And then fourth, presentation. So we're going to work backwards to get the meat and potatoes. We got a minute something per question for this board. Identifying what works, what doesn't work, eliminating quickly is what we need to do, because we may have a question that we don't know that we need to put more time into, right? So if we see something, eliminate it if you can. If you see a keyword that describes one, that's it. Move on. Systolic, Mr. Peyton Manning as MVP. MR, mitral regurg. PM, physiological murmurs, which in this we won't really be talking about it much because for the sake of this board, we are concentrating on this board, right? AS, aortic stenosis. MVP, mitral valve prolapse. Clicky. All right. What do we do first? We work backwards. What is the most likely diagnosis? So we know that we are diagnosing this patient. We're not planning, evaluating interventions. We are evaluating. We are diagnosing this patient. Okay? So we're diagnosing. What is the most likely diagnosis? We have a female. She comes into your clinic feeling fatigue, dyspnea, palpitations, We put that stethoscope on her and hear a blowing, hollow systolic. Y'all, that's the classic murmur of mitral regurgitation. Write it down. On this side right here on the right side, the location, your assessment, presentation, have that on your card because I tell you, classic, right? But it also in here gives away a lot. Systolic. So we know systolic can only be one of these four, right? Apex. Now, what is apex again? You remember? Apex, apical, mitral area. So from looking at this, we know it's systolic. We know that it's on the apex, so it can only be either mitral regurg or MVP because both of them are mitrals. Both of them are systolics. But when it says hollow systolic, it also could be pan-systolic. Classic regurg. Okay? And for the sake of this board, just, as a reminder that only systolic radiates. Only systolic radiates. So this is your physiological murmurs. Most of them are benign. Most of them have things to do with anemic patients, pregnant, anemic, dehydration, those type patients, okay? But for the sake of the boards, let's move on. What is the most likely diagnosis? So we're looking for a diagnosis of a male who came in with exertional dyspnea, angina, syncope. You put the scope to his chest and you hear harsh, harsh, harsh. So harsh matches crescendo decrescendo, which means loud and then soft. They're opposites, right? Crescendo, decrescendo. So high, murmur. It's heard at the second intercostal space. So you got your location, which is second intercostal space. So it can only be aortic. The harsh, noisy murmur heard crescendo, discrescendo is classic of aortic stenosis, you guys. And plus, it radiates to the neck because it's closest to it. Classic aortic stenosis. Get to know what is classic to each of them. If you want to, again, everything on that right side, write it down. It would definitely help you. But also in that question, it really does give a lot away. Right intercostal space. If you go to the bottom of those questions and it has mitral, tricuspid, pulmonic, eliminate quickly. Mitral valve prolapse. What is the likely diagnosis? You have a 30-year-old female, occasional chest pain complaints, palpitation. You put the step to her chest. You hit a mid-systolic, so we know it's systolic, with a late systolic murmur heard at the apex. But what really gives this away, when you write your note card, clicky. Oh, after he got his MVP, he was very clicky to his trophy. He was just clicky. All right? Classic. Now we're doing his arms. These are your diastolic. His arms are deadly, dangerous. D-I-E. I'm not dare not say it. I can't do that. But D-I-E, dangerous. They'll go down on you quickly. What that tells me is if you ever hear a diastolic, die in its name, stolic, murmur, you never observe it. Always investigate, always do something because it's dangerous, right? So you have your aortic regurg, your mitral stenosis. Those are his arms. What is the most likely diagnosis? So we're not intervention, planning, evaluating, we're diagnosing. A 45-year-old male who came in feeling dyspneic, fatigue, a widening pulse pressure. Write it down, y'all. You put the stethoscope to his chest and you hear a high-pitched blowing. So high-pitched, blowing softly. Discrescendo murmur. It's heard at the second intercostal space. It can only be one. You don't even have to read anything else because it says aortic regurg, high-pitched blowing, discrescendo murmur, the second intercostal space. So if I have anything else other than aortic, the only thing you have to figure out is the presentation. It dead giveaway each and every time. Mitral stenosis. What is my most likely diagnosis? Because we're diagnosing, we're not planning, we're not evaluating, we're not talking about his goals, interventions, educating. A 60-year-old female, dyspneic, spitting up blood, AFib, When you put the step to her chest, low pitch, rumbling. Diastolic. That right there says if it's a diastolic, it can only be 2. But then it gives you more. Heard at the apex, which eliminates anything else, right? You guys, we are at our red light. We're going to start from the bottom of each question on these boards. The murmurs, yes, but every question on these boards, and we're going to realize what they're asking us to do. We're going to look for that location. We are going to escalate and hear the sounds. What do you hear? Our assessment. How does this patient present to your clinic? And we're going to get the questions right each and every time. With our yellow light, we are going to be doing our elimination. We only have a minute something per question. We're going to eliminate every chance we get. So we're going to know the difference between our arms, Mr. Peyton Manning for MVP. We're going to know what apartment he lives in and where it's located. And we're going to get the questions right each and every time. So green light. Green light is know your stethoscope. Know your stethoscope. Know which ones you need your bell for. Do you know? S3, S4. No vowels involved. And how I remember this is your S1 and your S2. When I'm doing my blood pressure, your systolic goes first, your diastolic is at the bottom. So your first one, systolic, your second one, diastolic. Or one gives it away. One sounds like lub. 2 sounds like dub. It gives away in its name for me. But motivated apples. That is going to tell you exactly where it's at. Systolic, S1, lub. Motivated, mitral, tricuspid, your AV valve. Apples, APS, aortic, pulmonic, semilunar valve. Right? Are y'all getting it? Are you getting it? Are you getting it? Hopefully you're picking some stuff up. So this was the slide from the beginning. We are working our way backwards so we know exactly what they want. We're not getting emotional. We're going straight from the point. They want a diagnosis. We're going to give them a diagnosis. They want an evaluation. We're going to evaluate. They want education. We're going to educate. Therefore, we're going to cut through that fluff really quick because we only have a minute something per question. Eliminate when we can. Know our assessment findings, our location, our presentation. And you guys, if you're a flashcard girly, you go ahead and do that. If you are a PDF like me, I don't have time. I'm like a straight shooter. Let me just go ahead and take these PowerPoints and change them to a PDF. Make it easier for me. I just feel like I have so much other stuff that I have to study. You are welcome to take any of this. And please do, when I say please do, because it's on the boards. All of this. And at least you know you can get 3 correctly by systemically working backwards and knowing your location, your assessment, and presentation of these murmurs. You guys, let's practice. What is my most likely diagnosis for this patient? You have a male that came into your clinic complaining of shortness of breath, fatigue, occasional palpitation. He has a history of hypertension, chest pain. On exam, reveals a wholly systolic, so we know it's a systolic murmur heard at the apex. So that right there just says that it can only be two. If it's at the apex, the mitral valve prolapse or mitral regurg. Based on the systemic approach, the most likely diagnosis for this patient is mitral valve regurg because we worked it backwards. We know the location. We know that it's systolic. We understanding that the characteristics of regurg is a blowing murmur. If it's displaced at the apex, only correct one is mitral valve regurgitation. So, what do you guys think? Leave it in the comments. I am not afraid of murmurs. If you work it each and every time, you will get it right each and every time. If it says 2 or 3 questions, there's 2 or 3 questions that you will get right. And it will save you time to concentrate on other things. You guys, that has been presentation on murmurs. Y'all be safe out there, future MPs.